Hello and a very warm welcome to this latest edition of Talking Germany, the show where we do just that. And my guest this week is an entrepreneur and an idealist, a woman who wants to see her company succeeding in a tough global market and at the same time have a good conscience. Here is that remarkable woman in person, Antje von Dewitz.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us here today in Berlin, from coming all the way from Germany's deep south, all the way up to the German capital. Now, Antje von Dewitz runs a very successful company. It's called Vaude, and it manufactures outdoor products like backpacks, walking boots and tents, and much more besides. And the company's stated goal is to make sure that everything it does is done, if possible, according to exacting ecological standards. So, interesting stuff, I think. Antje, I'd like to begin with a quote, a very interesting quote, that you gave in an intriguing interview with the WWF, the World Wide Fund for Nature, in which you said something which seemed to me to be really drastic, and it was this: "I'm convinced that things are going in the wrong direction." And what you meant by that, because you actually mapped it out, the system, the way it has been set up. Yeah? You're nodding. What did you mean?
Well, we consume resources from two Earths, but we only have one Earth. Mm-hmm. And we consume these resources in a way that is damaging and destroying nature and mm-hmm. destroying life. That's pretty simple.
I said it was drastic, and that sounds drastic.
It is.
When we talk about your company, Vaude, it's a family-owned company, yeah? We're going to talk about it in great detail. It was set up by your father, and people talk a lot about your father. I'd like to begin now by talking about your mother, because my sense is that she was the person who, you know what I'm going to say now, in many ways, she had a great impression on you, and she made you the kind of pragmatic radical that you are.
Yes, definitely.
Tell me how that happened.
I think that my mother is a consumer critiker.
Mm-hmm.
She was always when we were sitting at dinner time. Mm-hmm. Then my mother started discussions like, "How can this be? Growth and growth and growth. Mm-hmm. Where shall we grow the economy? Yeah. This cannot work." Yeah. And these were the kind of questions that at that time, stayed in my mind.
It's a very German obsession. It all sounds very... When I listen to you answering my first question, now I listen to you talking about your mother, it sounds very German. Is that the impression you have as well? I mean, I know you...
No, I don't know what you mean by that. Why?
This almost obsessive concern with the environment. Okay. Germany, I mean, for people out there in the bigger wide world, Germany is still viewed as the green country in the world.
I hope so. I hope that this stays, because... when you look at China, for example, well, China is known probably a very nature-destroying country in our mind, but they are very forward in ecological technology. Yeah. And I have the fear that they overrun Germany one day, because Germany is now a little bit hesitating.
Overtake Germany.
Overtake Germany.
Get ahead of Germany.
Get ahead of Germany in ecological technology, which is good for China and good for the world. Mm-hmm. But I would wish that Germany would go this ecological way more straightforward.
It's interesting. I think the Chinese, in a lot of ways, have learnt from the Germans, and they're doing, in some senses, already doing a better job. Yeah. Okay, you've had your first impressions there from Antje von Dewitz. Here is more.
It's nice to get the red carpet treatment for your own fashion collection. Vaude boss Antje von Dewitz is at an outdoor equipment trade fair. Once a leisure industry, outdoor activities have evolved into a competitive sports market. And in this sector, the competition is pretty daunting. For the big brands facing Antje von Dewitz, the sky's the limit when it comes to advertising. On the community commitment and sustainability front, however, Vaude is scaling new heights of its own. Among the trends on show here is bouldering, a new indoor-outdoor sport performed without ropes. Scouting for new developments is vital for survival in this terrain. This competition is being sponsored by Vaude's subsidiary, Edelrid.
Our staff in product development are also involved in those sports.
They're very much in touch, and the boss in touch with her staff. Her father, Albrecht von Dewitz, founded the company in 1974 when she was just 2. Her first rucksacks during her childhood near Lake Constance were homemade affairs. Like her 2 sisters, Antje originally had professional plans of her own, but she eventually found that management was her calling after all. In 2009, her father handed on the baton. Von Dewitz Sr. says his daughter had a more traditional approach to management. Her more inclusive style made itself felt across the company. She also gave more importance to the style as well as the substance of the brand's products. The design team alone now comprises some 60 dedicated people. Their job is to ensure the company's organic approach is reflected in the look, feel and wearability, with the emphasis on natural and lightweight.
Natürlich und leicht, genau.
Das heißt, es passt also wunderbar zu den Produktgruppen, die wir legen wollen.
In southern Germany, with its low jobless rate, good recruits are hard to find. Having a family-friendly setup helps.
Toll.
Antje von Dewitz initiated an in-house childcare center before she was even boss. Her own children were among those to benefit. She says her job involves helping people to reach their full potential. And today, she's our guest on Talking Germany, Antje von Dewitz.
OK, Antje, let's go back a little bit in time. We heard about it there, your father. We need to talk about your father a little bit because he did set up the company. At the end of the Second World War, he was among the hundreds of thousands of Germans who were expelled, who were forced to leave places, East Prussia, Pomerania, Silesia, all these places, a lot of them now present-day Poland. Your father, as I said, was among one of those. That must have left a real stamp on the kind of person that he is.
Well, we never really talked about that, but what I believe is that the way he managed to make a company out of nothing, I think that's kind of because of his past.
That's interesting. And again, that's very, very typical, because that's exactly what you've said. Making a company out of nothing is so typical for the post-war German economic miracle. Everything that happened through the 60s, the 70s, right into the 80s here in Germany. Interesting in your father's case, because what I can't work out is what prompted him to make backpacks. I mean, there was nothing in his family tradition, as far as I can tell, and it's a highly skilled task. Yeah?
He was already working in the sports branch, and he was working for a skiing company, and he told the skiing company, hey, you should do him in backpacks. Because at that point of time, there was no outdoor branch, there was no outdoor market.
He was effectively among the people who invented the outdoor industry.
He's one of the people who definitely was one of the founding fathers of the outdoor branch.
Oh, that's interesting. And how well can you remember as a young girl those early days of the company? Presumably, I mean, as far as I can tell, it was happening in the garage initially.
Not in the garage, in the hop. In the
in the barn, you had hops, and there was a barn, and that was where it was all happening. Yeah. Yeah. And you can remember that.
I remember. I have few memories, but there are a lot of stories about the first month and years of the company.
Okay, we heard in that report about how you went out as a youngster, as a student, that kind of an age, and you experimented a little bit with life, with sort of politics, the media, and what have you, thinking, are these avenues I could go down? And then you decided to go back into the family-owned company. What was it that really ultimately prompted that decision?
Well, going to Vaude was one of the traineeships I did. It was my last traineeship because I wanted to just test all the different ways I could go. And what I found out is that, first of all, I love outdoors. That's the best branch of the world. But secondly, I have this drive to change things to the better. And where can you change things more to the better than being an entrepreneur? Because you have so many employees, you have these working conditions you can care for, you have the products, you have so many different, points where you can...
Where you can make a mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, OK. And your style, again, we learnt from that report, your style has been very different from your father, who went before. There's something inevitable about that. But tell me a little bit more in concrete terms what that means, your managerial style that sets you apart from your father.
That's really difficult for me to say, because other people say this, and for me it's difficult to say. I can only describe my own style, and my own style is I'm very team-oriented. I came to the business 30 years later than my father, with 30 years less of knowledge than my father. And I had all these experienced people in the company. So, and all these people who wanted to overtake also responsibility. So my style formed in this situation. I have a style that depends on trust, that depends on responsibility, that everybody overtakes responsibility. And it's a team-oriented style.
And very important, because you've put down that you're talking now about the past and the present, the way you work. Very important for the future is that you have set yourself this very ambitious goal of becoming the most successful ecological, or the most ecological outdoor company in Europe by 2015. Yeah, what does that mean?
The most sustainable, we always say.
The most sustainable. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we want to go this way, where everywhere where we overtake responsibility, we overtake it in a responsible way, in a sustainable way. So, for example, we care that we have an own label that's called Green Shape. So every product that we manage to make in a sustainable way, for example, from eco-cotton or from recyclable polyester, we mark with Green Shape. So we always have 80% of the clothing we have already in Green Shape. We are climate neutral at our where we produce in Germany.
How do you measure that?
We have all the CO2 emissions. We've counted all them since years because
you have counted them, or some, or have they been independently measured?
Independently measured. We are EMAS certified.
Okay.
And then we are climate neutral by also an organization who comes and measures and calculates.
Okay. Of course, being in the industry that you're in, the outdoor industry, you're going to tell me that you're doing everything you possibly can to be as ecological as possible. But all your competitors are exactly the same. They're all doing exactly the same thing. What sets you apart?
The dedication to do it very consequently. We have very well examined where we should overtake responsibility, and we have very clear concepts and very transparently watched. We report by GRI, we're EMAS certified, we are with Fair Wear. We always have these independent organizations who control us very transparently. And in everything we do, we're just very consequent. And I know that the outdoor branch is getting more and more ecological. That's the way it is. But I think we are the company that is very that does it in a very
far-reaching, comprehensive way. I think that's the word you're looking for. Just give me one word on this, though, because one thing that occurs to me is that when a lot of your people go walking in the Alps with your equipment on. When I'm up there in the Alps, some of the alpine paths these days are busier than your average high street. That's not good for the environment, is it? And you're all part of that.
Yes, we are part of that because we equip the people who go there, and we make all these pictures that people like and people want to see that. But we try to overtake responsibility by showing only pictures where people walk on the path and behave themselves. We have a partnership with the German Alpine Club and with the WWF to support that people are educated to behave in the nature, to enjoy and behave. And my philosophy is also that people who go out and who enjoy nature, they know what must be preserved. So I think that's a good point that people start there to behave in a very responsible way.
Very interesting. Once again, Antje, I think you're sounding very, very German. Very committed, but keeping people on the right path at the top of the mountains. Here is an interesting figure for you. 92% of all German companies, including Antje's, of course, are family-owned. They're the backbone of the German economy. But many of these companies face serious challenges when the time comes for the founding generation, people like Antje's father, to hand over the reins of power to their sons and daughters. These are fascinating stories, these family-owned companies. They're sometimes like sort of soap operas, like dramas with great moments of conflict and really interesting characters all sort of interacting, yeah?
Definitely.
I suppose the most important question is, does your father meddle?
Meddle?
Meddle, yeah? Does he get involved in ways in the company and want to sort of still shape and manage the company in a way that gets on your nerves?
When I overtook the company, I heard many people say, out of my reach, said, oh my God, the poor girl, she's only being the back seat driver. Or,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Nobody believed that he would not meddle. I was a little bit afraid, but he kept his promise. He said he wouldn't meddle, and he doesn't meddle.
That's interesting because, you know, in these kind of debates, I've talked to people in your position a lot, and I've talked to people in the position of the founder of a company, be it often they're men, but sometimes women, handing the company over. It's the problem is they can't let go.
Well, he has another way. He's found another way. He's now he founded an own production company in Vietnam, and now he's our most important backpack producer.
So he's found something useful to do. Yeah.
Yes, and he's definitely meddling with the production of the backpacks, and development of the backpacks.
Okay, so he's getting involved there. Yeah. You must have learned though some. I mean, because he will cast a shadow over the company. I mean, he set the company up in the first place. You must have learned some very interesting skills for dealing with that kind of issue with your father over the years, yeah? Human skills.
Yeah, he's an entrepreneur. For him counts that there are no boundaries, no rules, because you can define your own rules and your own boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's the thinking that I thought of, inhaled by birth.
Yeah, because that's interesting, because what I was going to ask you is what is it like, what was it like being the daughter of the man who established the company, and what put you in a position, because this is other people at the company must wonder, what makes her the right person to run the company?
Oh, okay, what makes me the right person? I don't know. I should have thought about this question before. I think that I'm kind of part of this company because it's part of me.
Yeah.
For 40 years, I lived with this company, so I'm history. I think I bridge history and future a little bit.
Okay.
And I think I have a skill in leading people, in leading people into the future.
I mean, it's interesting your reaction to the question. One reason why I'm asking the question is because you must have been under a lot of pressure. You have to prove yourself to the people around you. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really feel like that. I don't know why. I mean, coming out of your mouth, it should have, but it didn't really feel like it. I have worked in the company for 8 years in different positions, and I proved myself in these positions.
Oh, yeah.
So when I overtook the company and I had my team already around me, people that have worked in the company for many years, and we built a team, it felt good. It felt like, wow, let's go.
Great stuff. But nevertheless, I did read somewhere, and I wonder if you could confirm this, that your father had it sort of written into your contract, effectively, that if you failed over a period of time, 2 or 3 years, to turn a profit in comparison with other companies in the same sort of industry, you'd be fired.
Yeah. Years later, I found out that he never signed this contract, so it's never really came to.
It never really existed.
Never really
but the intention was there.
The intention was there, and but I never felt pressure from that, because if I had failed, I would have gone anyway.
Okay.
If I would have led the company into the ruin, I wouldn't have felt good leading the company further.
Okay, you've talked about your principles, about your management principles, about how you run the company, and there's a sort of a different style of management from many other companies, and one of the words you used is trust. Yeah, how do you establish trust in a company among your employees? So it's an important commodity. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not easy to establish that because first of all, it's a lot of discussion with the management team. Okay, what kind of trust do we mean? Do we trust that everything our employees do is perfect? No, it's not. It's just the trust in the simple fact that the persons who work at Vaude work there because they like working there and they like to cooperate and they like to bring their best. And then it's the task of the management to build the frame within they can give their best. And to keep up this motivation. It's not the task to keep them motivated, just to keep the frame that they can keep their initial motivation. And that's by trusting in their motives. And that leads to regulations that based on trust, that leads to a certain feedback culture, to a culture where you can admit to mistakes, and so on and so on.
That's interesting stuff. It's all sounding a little bit too rosy for me, though. There must be, I mean, there must have been moments in recent years, since you've taken over the company, where your trust has been abused. I'm with you. It's not rosy because we're not there yet. We've come step, but I think it's a long way because it's sort of a change management for all of us to go in this kind of relationship and with trust. Yeah. That's people have to learn, and it's a lot of discussions and fallbacks, but. Personally, I don't feel mistrusted. I don't feel that I have... Trust has been abused?
I don't feel that.
There have been no instances where you've looked at somebody and thought, look, we gave you a generous setup here and you have abused it?
Probably there have been situations. I can't remember them now. And normally, I always see the reasons why. In normal situations, I see, okay, the framework, okay, we gave him too much responsibility. He was, or he didn't understand the targets, or communication was bad. Or there's so many different points that lead to a behavior that is not wished.
Okay.
And we have trained ourselves to look at all these points before we mistrust the person.
Interesting. Very interesting indeed. OK, we've been talking about environmental, ecological matters, and a growing number of consumers here in Germany are concerned that the clothing products they buy don't meet environmental standards and that they are produced under what are often shocking conditions. We all remember, of course, the terrible fire just over a year ago in a garment factory in Bangladesh that left over 100 people dead. It's prompted some suppliers here in Germany to adopt a new approach. It's an interesting report. There are two aspects to it, I think, because one of them is materials a little bit and the other one is working conditions. And I'd like to sort of talk about working conditions first. We can all remember that fire I mentioned in Bangladesh, and I can remember with my kids sitting down and talking about the clothes that we wear and how come they're so inexpensive here in Europe because of working conditions elsewhere. You must have seen those scenes in that factory and after the fire. And you're coming from a very different perspective from me. What was your emotional reaction to that?
I was shocked, first of all. And secondly, I thought, well, how dramatic and how sad that it always needs to take a situation like this that people start thinking. And something terrible like this, on the other side, helps that people get more conscious about how comes that clothes can be so cheap, and what can be done against it. What can I look for as a consumer? And this has definitely happened again. That labels like fair wear get promoted by that. Okay,
when you talk about fair wear, let's talk about, because it's interesting to know how concretely that works. Because they sort of monitor the work you do at your plant in Asia.
Yeah, we have two own plants, but mostly we work with producers. So we give our Auftrag.
Your contracts.
We give our contract to the suppliers. So, and we have not much influence in these plants. We have only like 5% that is produced Vaude products in these plants, for example. So we don't have, we are not...
So you mean only 5% of the total production at a given plant is actually yours?
Yes. Yeah. So and now Fair Wear comes and makes an audit in this plant, and with a team that is native, with a native-speaking team, and they look into the contracts. They speak with the workers. They speak with the workers in a way that nobody's looking, so they can tell them everything. They see if the fire regulations are kept. They see if watch if the employees know about their rights, and if not, take the care that they are taught their rights, and so on and so on. And there are telephone numbers in the company then where the employees can call and say, hey, we have a complaint here.
Okay.
So they really go really deep into the details and find everything out.
And how many people work for the Fair Wear Foundation?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah, because it's important to know, because clearly, I mean, all over Asia, there are textile factories and what have you, garment manufactories, and you know, if they're going to be monitored fairly, then you have to have an organisation that doesn't just have 4 people in an office in Manila or whatever. Yeah. How often have you been to? I mean, you've got 2 plants, you tell me, or you've got 2 plants that are actually doing the manufacturing for you. Have you been there and looked for yourself at the working conditions? What can you report
from the working conditions in our own factories?
Yep. Yeah, I'm interested.
It's good working conditions. It's they have. I don't know if you've ever been in a company, so if you can compare.
Well, tell me. I mean, you know more about it than I do. Yeah.
It's clean. They have good food there. They are paid properly. There are no kids that work there. They are trained. So they are on a higher educated.
Okay. It all sounds very encouraging. And how often, you tell me about the inspections that take place, the independent inspections, how often do they actually take place?
It's the first initial audit, and then there is a plan that has to be kept. So because it's written down, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay. Oh, here we have a point that we have to work on. Yeah. And then it depends on how big the things are that have to be changed. Yeah. This decides about is there a second audit or not, or is the second audit only in 3 years.
Okay, so as I say, relatively encouraging. I'm very interested to hear that. Let's talk about the other aspect of the story was materials, yeah? That a lot of the materials you use, I mean, you want to have sort of, they're up to some sort of ecological, environmental standard, but the problem that you have is a lot of the materials you use are synthetic fibres, synthetic man-made textiles that are petroleum-based. They're not biodegradable, yeah? How much of a Look, you're shaking your head. Yeah. You're not necessarily agreeing. Tell me more there. Yeah. How are you meeting that challenge?
Yeah, we are in the outdoor branch, and so the materials have to function. They have to be breathable, water resistant, and so on and so on. And you don't have this with cotton. Yeah. So you need to go now to synthetics. So we have one very important standard, which is called Blue Sign, and which makes sure that everything that goes into the material, into the fabric, like the color, the yarn, the fabric itself, and so on, is certified in a way that is as ecological as possible, and that the whole production way is certified. So every machine is best available technology, consumes so less water and energy as possible, so that the working condition is very safe, and the outcome is a product that is as ecological as possible and has consumed so less energy as possible. That's a very important standard, which makes it necessary that every step in the whole chain is certified. So that different players who must certify their products that go into the ready product. That is really extensive and very complicated to do. So that's one of the main things we do. And we take recycled polyester, for example. We take eco cotton where it's possible, and so on and so on.
Antje von Dewitz, one thing we learned from that report is that what women want is flexibility, and you try to give it to them. Tell me how.
We have more than 55% of the people that work at Vaude that work in flexible part-time jobs, or that share jobs, or that work from home and work in the company. So we have all kind of different job profiles at Vaude. Okay.
So you give them flexibility. Another problem for women in Germany is that it's very difficult for them to get up into the senior management level. Yeah, Germany's got a really bad track record in this respect. You're nodding, yeah, because you know the problem. It's a problem that you are trying to solve in your own company. How are you doing that?
Well, we have this flexible job situation, and we have a childcare center at Vaude. So we have 31 children that we have at Vaude. Yeah. And that gives women the possibility to not go home for 3-5 years when they have kids, but to come back to work pretty fast. Yeah. And that's one main secret to promote women, because now they have the chance to stay in their job and to go on in the career ladder. Because if they stay away for 3-4 years, all the men go past them. Okay, so and again, I said that in Germany it's very difficult for women to get into the top echelons of companies. At your company, how many, at the senior management level, I don't know how many people that is. How many of them are men? How many of them are women? What are the facts and figures? Okay, it's led by a woman, and then from all leading positions, 38% are women. Mm-hmm. And we have the different management levels, and in the lowest there are the most women, but slowly it's coming up. So more in the two and third layers are women too. Okay, so you've got lots of people, including lots of women, on sort of flexi-time arrangements, generous arrangements, working time arrangements. You've got the daycare centre, so mothers and fathers can pop across to their kids and say hello and make sure everything's all right during the day. Yeah. And we have this culture of trust that makes it okay that people work from home. Yeah, but who pays for? Who pays? How do you, I don't know. No, but you have to make. Yeah, we pay for that. You have to turn a profit, so you have to make it work. Yeah. The organization is very complicated by that. It's a lot of cost. That's the business. We have a lot of organizational problems with that, and we have a lot of costs. But we enjoy it still. But I would wish that in Germany there would be a different framework for companies. That it's not so expensive for companies to be involved. OK, we're going to have to leave it there on our discussion of very, very interesting stuff, a very interesting contribution you are making, I think, Antje. At the end of the show, we normally have a quick quiz, quick questions, quick answers, yeah? Where do you prefer to be, on your bike or in your mountain boots? Mountain boots. Do you prefer to be in a tent or in a hotel room? Tent. Are you a realist or an idealist? Ideal. No, both. I can't say. Both. Do you imagine that one day one of your 4 children is going to take over the company? I have not the slightest idea. I don't know. OK, whatever happens, I wish you well. She's been a great guest, the very fit, the very committed, the inspiring and convincing Antje von Dewitz. If you've enjoyed her company as much as I have, come back next week. Until then, bye-bye and tschüss.